All right, gather around, children. When I started this, I started talking about history that we knew about, things you could find in a history book. As time went on, I started choosing topics that are history and have a basis in fact, but we're not told about, or are things that are skipped over or unknown. And that leads me down some dark hallways. This is one of those dark hallways. So today we're going to talk about the AMA. I'm a guy who talks about history on the internet. These are the facts. Started in 1847, the AMA was initially started as a doctors' union. You know, a union to protect the interests of its members. At the time, there were two types of medicine. Allopathic medicine. Now, allopathic medicine is the type of medicine that uses things like pharmaceuticals, surgery, medicine we have today. The other kind was homeopathic medicine. They used natural cures, stuff that had been around for centuries. It was created so doctors could make money. Actually, back then, the Journal of an AMA had a statement, and I quote, "The growth of medical practices needs to be stemmed if members are to find the practice of medicine lucrative." Basically, alternative medicine or homeopathic medicine needs to be stemmed in order for allopathic medicine, which is what the AMA doctors practice, to be lucrative. It was formed to make money. In 1910, the AMA brought in the Carnegie Foundation to survey medical schools. This called for the standardization of medicine. This standardization called for anything that can be deemed scientific to be the only available medicine there is. And who deemed things scientific? The AMA. This virtually limited homeopathic and alternative medicine. After this, medical schools were forced to eliminate any courses that involved homeopathic medicine in favor of things that were scientific in allopathic medicine. This led to a significant drop in medical schools. In 1904, there was 160 medical schools granting MDs. By 1935, there were 66. The AMA established their medicine, their version of medicine, which is allopathic medicine, as the only viable version of medicine, stating that the MD, by law, is the only one entitled to taking care of the sick. Alternative medicine was then discredited, and in some cases made illegal. They labeled doctors who practice homeopathic or alternative medicine as quacks, and discredited it altogether. You see, the AMA offered funding to schools that were willing to drop homeopathic or alternative medicine courses. Overnight, they received grants and large sums of money. As part of this, they were required to put doctors who were major players in the AMA on their boards, thus getting a say on how the schools operated and what they taught. At that point, medical schools were then taken over by financial interests of the organization, the AMA. This also eliminated medical schools for minorities and women. Women and minorities had an incredibly difficult time after that getting MDs. Listen, I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying it happened. Doctors from that point were taught to use drugs and allopathic ways only. This was controlled by the interests of the pharmaceutical companies. And this leads me to this gem. You see, the FDA was formed in 1906, but it wasn't until 1962 that drug companies actually had to prove that their medications worked and was safe. From 1906 to 1962, they only needed the approval of one place, the AMA. See, and this led to a thing. The AMA leaders would buy stock in the drug companies before they approved the medication. Once the medication was approved by the AMA, stock prices jumped. This is insider trading. You know, like what happens in... See, up until 1911, George H. Simmons ran the AMA when all of this was formed. Simmons wasn't even a doctor. He got his diploma by mail. And Morris Fishbein, who was the leader of the AMA, went to medical school, but never got a diploma. Never practiced medicine a day in his life. In 1938, the AMA was indicted, along with Morris Fishbein, for violating the Sherman Antitrust Acts. Now, the AMA was found guilty and fined. Fishbein was acquitted. Anybody that came up against the AMA was immediately discredited, such as Royal Raymond Rife. We've talked about him. He invented the Rife machine. Now, he stated that he got the cure for cancer and was discredited. In the 1960s, two guys named Kane and Marsh got together with Rife again and started building Rife's machines. Their lab was subsequently raided without a warrant. They were convicted of medical malpractice and sentenced to 3 years. By the way, the judge was an AMA doctor. And their history is littered with this. Dr. Milbank Johnson died in 1944. He was poisoned and all of his research was taken. Burnett Labs, who were again building the Rife machines, mysteriously burned to the ground in 1939. Elmore Nemes did the same thing. He died of smoke inhalation when his bed mysteriously caught fire in 1969. Jeffrey Bradstreet, he linked vaccines to autism and used alternative medicine. He was found dead in a North Carolina river in 2015. Gunshot wound to the chest. Don C. Wiley was a microbiologist and expert on the immune system. He was finding ways to help the immune system battle things like smallpox, HIV, flu. Yet he went missing in 2001 and was later found dead in the Mississippi River. All of these guys were making advancements in medicine, then mysteriously disappeared or died. Now, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying it's suspicious. It is a known fact that the FDA will not approve anything from nature, and it's illegal to use certain medicines unless it's approved by the FDA. Round face history guy! Yeah. This is all coincidence! Because I'm sure everything's on the up and up now. I don't believe it! Alright, let me prove my point. We talked about in a video the other day the prescription of medications. The number one prescription right now is Atorvastatin. It's for high cholesterol. Your brain needs cholesterol. It's what it's made out of. Yet we prescribe it to get rid of it. Don't believe me? Okay, here's another one. Go look at the American Diabetes Association's list of foods that you should eat. Yet a lot of it breaks down into sugar once it's methylated. And methylation is the body process that converts food and other things into usable forms of fuel. Still not enough? Let's go more recent. Everybody knows what GLP-1 medications are now. Semaglutide medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. Trizipatide medications like Zepbound and Mounjaro. Now, these medications are used to treat diabetes and help with weight loss, the two epidemics we have in this country. Actually, Zepbound was just approved to treat sleep apnea. See, now here's the thing. Most insurance policies don't cover these medications. These are medications that can help with the epidemic of diabetes and obesity. Because they don't cover them, this makes the costs in the thousands. So in steps compound pharmacies. These pharmacies broke down these medications and offered versions that were much more affordable. And the only FDA-approved ones were by Big Pharma. And by May 2025, compound pharmacies were required to stop making them. Now, there is a loophole in this once it was clarified. They can make them as long as it's patient-specific, where they add in or change things to support the patient. Then they can make them. A lot of places add vitamins into it, like B12. That makes them patient-specific. So they're starting to come back around. You see, now before this went into effect in May, the big pharma companies created compound versions of their medications and offered them to patients for a similar cost. For example, the Zepbound pens are $1,200 a month without insurance. Or you can go on Eli Lilly's website, get a compound version of it from their pharmacy for about $300. By no means am I discrediting medical professionals. These people are amazing people, and I'm one of them. But I am saying that this is history that we don't know about. And we need to. There's 24 hours in a day and 24 beers in a case. Coincidence? I think not. If you're picking up what I'm putting down. All in all, this is the history and fact. Nothing more. And with that being said, thanks for watching. Best way to support me is to like, comment, or share my videos. TikTokHistoryTeacher.com. And the Yamato's a coral reef. Be nice, be kind, be patient.